Well, it would help if I would get the trial pulled up. I was like, oh, cool, it portaled me too. Because I have my other channel. I have my channel pulled up. Like, cool, I got portaled. I did it right. And I don't have the trial pulled up. Um, we now have 7 jurors seated. I believe it's 7 in the Karen Reed trial. So the prediction is the end of next week. They should have a jury. Come on, StreamYard.
On the record, in the case of People versus Linda Stermer, all are present except for the jury. Any matters to address before we bring them in?
I do. I went back to the beginning. How'd I?
And what are we looking at here again?
Oh. No. Quit muting me, StreamYard. There's this thing called the First Amendment. I can say what I want. Quit trying to silence me. Can I sue StreamYard for trying to silence me all the time?
Various hypotheses as to what may have been the area of origin of the Stermer residence. Is that also correct? And we had already disproved two of your hypotheses.
I didn't use the word disprove. I eliminated the east section of the house, and we were still discussing the south section.
Very good. And my memory serves correct. It looks like we were on People's Exhibit 34-13. Those exhibits. Yes. Yeah, I think I admitted them yesterday afternoon, like first thing.
StreamYard, I don't know what your problem is.
Photo 22.
Before we go to 22, I did kind of neglect to ask this question of you. When you're evaluating burn damage, what are you looking for?
As I evaluate on the basics, I'm trying to know how that thing is burned. And meaning the part that burned the worst is the part that's gone. So, for instance, if we're at a campfire in the backyard and you put a log on the fire and it burns, and it gets late, you go in, come out the next morning, and there's still remnants of the log left. The part of the log that's the furthest away from the fire has, sometimes it's even not even burned, but it has the least amount of char. And as you look down the log towards where the fire was, it gets smaller, because that is what we refer to as mass loss. Mass of the log has been consumed away. So there's mass loss. So that's one of the things we're looking for. If there's mass loss, that means this may have been closer to the fire. And then when you get down closer to where the fire was, there's nothing left. That's also a term of mass loss. So as I'm evaluating burn damage, that is one of the things I'm looking for, is the mass loss of material, or we'll also use the word fuel. And when a fire investigator uses the word fuel, don't confuse that with like fuel for your vehicle or anything. We're talking about anything that burns. Wood, paper, plastics, anything else that can burn, we consider fuel for the fire. So that's a generalization of when I'm looking at burn damage, what I'm doing. I'm trying to evaluate that burn damage to similar structures in that burn damage. The higher, the longer the burn, the more burn damage typically means that burned longer and it is closer to where the fire started.
Now, do you also evaluate burn damage on, say, things that are not part of the house, like a person?
Yes, it's one of the reasons I looked at Todd Stermer the night is to look at the burns on him. The burns on everything, furniture, the structure, and victims are part of the burn damage that need to be evaluated.
Very good. So now we're going to turn our attention, I believe you said, to picture number 22. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And what are we looking at here again?
So this photograph, I was standing in the central portion of the basement, looking towards the south. So in the previous overhead shot, the area where the roof was still intact, this is the rooms directly underneath it. So this is going to be the rooms in the southwest quadrant of the structure. This is the fire damage in these two areas on the floor of the second floor. Obviously,
is that the area I'm pointing to here?
Correct.
Okay.
Obviously, the floor between the first floor and the basement is gone. But you can see there's still wood or wall structure that's unburned, especially if you, at the photo, the top left of the photo, you can see a wall section that is unburned. And you can see a large amount of debris that the prosecutor pointed to earlier on the floor. Now, this debris would be a accumulation from both floors. Actually, the debris you're looking at on the top, that likely came from the first floor when the floor burned away and it collapsed down. The significance there is the amount of debris in this area is more solid than the area to the center. So what I'm saying is there's less mass loss of the fuel in this area than the center area. That determination helped me eliminate the south side of the structure as an area of origin.
And is the fact that the roof still appears to be intact in that area relevant? I'm not sure if we talked about that.
Yes, it is. That's part of the overall mass burn area of the south side.
So at that point in time, then you were able to that particular area of the house. Is that correct?
The south section, yes.
South section. Which section did you move on to next?
Next, let's go back to photo 13.
Certainly.
So I've eliminated the east section and the south section, so that leaves what I'm referring to as the center section and the quadrant in the northwest section. The northwest section, by evaluating it, obviously there's a collapse damage. There is significant burn damage here, but by looking at it, I'm comparing the amount of mass of the fuel that's left, the amount of structure that's burned or unburned, and there is significantly more on the north side of unburned area. You can also see kind of in the middle between the north area and the center, there's studs in this picture. They're actually kind of horizontal, but that's the picture of a wall that's collapsed down, but those studs are still intact, which denoted a wall section between, or a wall section, that's a wall section between the north part and the central part.
Just so the record's clear, we're talking about the area in the kind of upper right part of the photo here where I'm circling with my pointer?
Correct.
Okay. All right. And so at this point in time, were you able to eliminate that area, or is there additional evidence you need to consider?
So at that point, I eliminated that area, the northern area, as an area of origin. So now I'm concentrating on the center section. The center section has two floors, the main floor and the basement. Well, I can see this photo. You can see it's this photo. You can see at the top of the photo, there's the exterior wall that appears to have remnants of bay windows that would, you would typically.
This area here, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
That you would expect to see with a cathedral ceiling. So I'm going to examine this area. Now I want to determine if it's the first floor or the basement where the fire starts. So. I apologize. So if we can pull up photo 12.
12? That's easy.
So we're examining the west side or back side of the structure from the exterior. Important things to notice is, now I've already eliminated those sections, so I'm kind of concentrating on the center portion. I'm looking at the fire damage that's coming out of the windows. So where is the fire from inside the house first and longest coming out of the house? We look to the large bow windows. We can see there's heavy charring all around those window sections. We've already seen that the roof in this area is consumed away.
And we're talking, just so I'm clear, this area here, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Now, if you look to the right, we're still talking the main floor, the area that I previously eliminated, but you can see that there's fire coming out of that window, and you can see the black and kind of comes out in kind of a cone shape out of the window as the fire does. Now let's compare those two areas, the burn damage there, to the windows on the basement level.
That would be these windows down in this area here.
Correct. So notice the amount of fire, or specifically the fire, those windows. Let's go to photo 17.
17?
Yes. So this is the close-up of the door leading into the basement. We've talked about how heavy the fire is to the windows above, but this basement window, there is no fire coming out of that door. And the two windows on the side, the one to the left doesn't have any smoke or fire coming out of it. The one to the right has some smoke and probably a little bit of heat coming out of it. But comparatively to those other windows, and especially the windows above, dramatically less. The reason for this is, or let me say it a different way. If, as I'm thinking about area of origin, if I think, what would this look like if this fire started in the basement? If that fire had started in the basement in this center section, what would that fire do? It would eventually go up to the ceiling, which is going to be the floor of the first floor. And from there, it's going to start spreading to other areas of the basement, including venting out those windows. Now, if it goes long enough, it will eventually burn through the floor, and then it'll go up into the living room. But before that happens, it's going to burn and spread through the basement. Let's look at the other way around. If the fire starts on the first floor, where's that fire going to go? The fire's going to want to go up. So as it goes up and it starts spreading on that main floor, it's going to spread, eventually go through the windows, and then it will start attacking the roof. At some point, the roof, in this case, burned, collapsed, and when it collapsed, it came down. Whoops, I'm sorry. When it came down, and then it started burning away the floor. At some point in this incident, the floor burned away, and then all of that debris on the first floor now dropped into the basement. But since the roof was already burned away, the fire will go straight up instead of going sideways. It's sort of like if you're outside and you have a burn barrel and you have all kinds of holes in the side of the burn barrel. When you light something on fire in that burn barrel, the fire doesn't come out the holes in the side because it can go straight up and out. So that's kind of an analogy for what's going on here. Because the roof is already burned away, the fire that's now in the house can go straight up and not out those windows. So given that information, I've now narrowed my area of origin to the main floor, living room in the central part of the house, central west part of the house.
And if we flip back to People's Exhibit 13, that would be this area right here where I'm circling with my pointer. Is that correct?
Yes. If you can, could you zoom into that area real quick?
Yes.
So the boundaries of that room, you can see towards the bottom of the photograph, there's a wall section that is above the fireplace. So that would be the eastern wall of the living room. On the left side where that roof is, that would be the boundary for the south side of the living room. We know you can see the exterior is the boundary to the west side of the living room. And where you see that wall collapsed, that would be the boundary for the north side of the living room. So in that area that we're looking at right now, on the main floor is the area of origin. Is what I determined to be the area of origin.
So you determined the area of origin to be the living room of the Stermer residence?
Correct.
And in determining the area of origin, at that At the time you determined this originally, did you have information about the statements of what Linda Stermer had stated to either Mr. Shinsky or other investigators?
Not at this point, no.
And had you received any information about the gasoline present on Mr. Stermer's
Thank you,
sweatpants,
Carla.
if you recall?
I had not received well, I hadn't even taken the sweatpants to the lab at this point,
Okay.
because this was all done on the January 8th.
Yay. I'm so happy.
And I think we've already touched on this a little bit. The next finding you need to make is basically the cause of the fire. Is that fair?
Correct.
And how is it you go about doing that?
To determine the cause, I say cause, what started the fire? What was the ignition source of the fire is trying to determine the cause of the fire. It's one of the kind of the same process, the scientific method as we
Thank
did
you,
with origin.
sweetie.
I'm looking in the area of origin and I'm thinking, what is there that can start a fire?
Thank you so much. I
Now-
appreciate it.
I'm breaking this down into origin and cause and section, but as the two in real life kind of happens simultaneously. As I'm looking through the house, I'm taking notice. As I'm looking for the area of origin, I'm obviously taking notice of items that may be a cause of the fire or need to be considered a cause of the fire. We kind of break it down, one for analysis purposes, one or the other, but really it almost happens at the same time as you're walking around. So in the area of origin, things I considered at what could start the fire: the fireplaces and associated chimney, considered smoking, electrical, the furnace, the laundry machines. And I also considered an intentionally set fire as a possible fire cause. So then I start examining those to see if I can eliminate them from the scenario.
Are you familiar with the term ignition source?
Yes.
What is that?
Ignition source is something that generates enough heat to ignite or catch fire a piece of fuel.
And are you familiar with the term first fuel ignited?
The term is pretty self-explanatory. The ignition source comes into the fuel that is first ignited or first caught on fire.
Fair enough. Let's, if we can, then work through your hypotheses as to what may have caused the fire at the Stermer residence, if we can. What was the first hypotheses you would have tested against the data you collected?
The first one I would have looked at is the laundry machines. We had one photo of, got a couple photos actually. If we go to photo 23.
Certainly.
They were in the basement. He said the fire started in the living room. Right? Didn't he? Or did I miss it? Did I miss something?
23.
Okay.
So when we introduced this photo yesterday, I mentioned you could directly in the middle of the photograph on the other side of those 2x4s is a white vertical. That is the side of one of the laundry machines. And we don't need to go through, but we also showed a photo of the dryer. Those can be eliminated as a fire cause because they're not in the area of origin. They're on the other side of that 2x4 wall, and there is one of the mental exercises a fire investigator goes through when he looks at an area of an ignition source. Excuse me. Is you look at that and say, okay, there's a fire. What would this fire look like? If the fire starts in one of those laundry machines or at one of those laundry machines, it's going to spread from the laundry room, going to go up, it's going to spread outward. Well, as it does that, it's going to start consuming fuel, the structure of the house. Well, in this case, you can In order for that amount of fire damage to occur in the living room, it would have had to, the fire from the laundry room would have had to burn through that wall or up the stairs. Well, there's still significant mass left of that wall. As a matter of fact, if you look at those studs, 2x4s, they're not even smoked. The typical reason those aren't even smoked in this case is because they had drywall on them. If you can see that center 2x4, you can see a little, right there, you can see a strip that's kind of greenish and white. That's left over drywall or gypsum board. Drywall serves as a fire barrier. And so that would have kept the fire from the laundry room into the living room. The reason it's gone now is during fire suppression, that drywall gets crumbly in the fire, and then when it's hit with a high pressure water hose, then it falls off. So with that, I can eliminate laundry machines as the cause of the fire. I also considered the furnace. Let's look at photo 26.
That photo 26?
Yes. This is right in the center of the photograph. You can see the sheet metal. That is the furnace. Again, notice the amount of structural material that's still there compared to the living room. And go to photo 27. That is a closer view of the furnace. Now the furnace is damaged because the upper stories collapsed on top of it. So there was damage. I examined the fuel lines, didn't find any significant leak in the fuel lines that I could see visually or I could test. And there was structural damage, or the structural damage around the furnace was less than the area of origin in the living room. So with that, I was able to eliminate the furnace as a cause of the fire.
What would be another possible hypothesis you would consider as to the cause of this fire?
One of the hypotheses was smoking, but I learned that that there was no smoker, or that no one smoked cigarettes in the Stermer household. I think occasionally, I was said that Todd would occasionally smoke a pipe, but no one smoked cigarettes in the home.
And did you receive any indication that anyone was smoking in the house that day?
I did not.
And what else did you consider as a possible hypothesis for the cause of the fire?
I considered electrical cause. Well, let me back up. I considered an electrical cause. Electrical cause is a little more difficult because a lot of the electrical components are missing, which is not uncommon when you're doing a fire investigation, especially one of this magnitude, that sometimes the electrical components just are gone. So you have to consider how the fire burned, the fire dynamics. And you have to consider where the electrical is located. Electrical is located typically in the walls or the ceiling. So if the electrical system malfunctioned or failed, that fire is going to be in the wall. And electrical fires start small. So if you think about if you have something plugged into an outlet and that starts sparking and catches on fire, well, that fire is going to start small and it's going to slowly grow. It's not going to be a large expanse of fire at the onset. It's going to slowly grow. The indication, number one, we noticed a lot of the walls are still in place, right? When we looked at the photographs for the southern bedrooms, we had that one wall that was still there. We still had significant wall structure on I'm talking about studs. The studs are left on the north side. So if an electrical fire would start in those walls, we wouldn't see those studs, because they would have to, same thing. The fire would have to burn out, get rid of those studs before it could get into the living room and burn up to the roof. And the origin is not coming from any of the wall areas. It's coming more from the living space of the living room, on the first floor living room. So given the fire dynamics, the way the fire reacted, and the lack of initial damage to the walls, I eliminated electrical cause at that point.
Now, you mentioned an electrical fire is kind of a fire that starts small. Is that what you elaborated on here?
Correct.
And is that if you can opine on this, a fast developing fire or a kind of a smoldering, slow developing fire?
The development of the fire would all depend on the fuel load around it. The electrical short or the electrical fire starts small, but if that electrical fire happened to have been surrounded by styrofoam, it's going to burn faster than if it was just touching wood. So that varies.
Would there be smoke?
There would be smoke.
And to your understanding, how many people were in the Stermer residence on January 7th, 2007?
I was told, and on both 7th and the 8th, that there was 2 people in the residence, Todd Stermer and Linda Stermer.
And is the fact that there are 2, and this fire occurred about what time, if you recall?
3:30 in the afternoon or 2:30? I'd have to look at a report to get the exact time, but it was in the afternoon.
In the afternoon. And typical hours when people would be awake?
Correct.
And does that factor into this decision at all, that there were 2 persons in the home that would likely be awake?
Yes, I was given initial information from the Van Buren County detectives who did some initial interviews on the 7th, that there were 2 people. Linda and Todd were in the house at the time of the fire, and they were both awake. Todd may have been taking a nap, but Linda was awake. These were some initial statements that the Sheriff's Department relayed to me.
So I guess to kind of get to the bottom of my question here, and to your knowledge, were either of the Stermers disabled or invalid of any kind?
Not that I'm aware of.
In fires you've investigated before, does that play a role in that, in when there's a fatality or something sometimes?
Yes, it does.
How so?
I've done fatal fires before where people were bedbound or wheelchair bound. I think one of the fires, the person was wheelchair bound, and the fire started in their lap from smoking, and because they're wheelchair bound and they're by themselves, they couldn't escape. Same thing, I've had people who are bedridden, fire starts, and they're unable to escape because they physically can't move. Also, occasionally, I've had it where people are known to be intoxicated and in bed, and this can also impair their ability to escape or to self-rescue themselves from a fire.
Would you agree with the premise then that the likelihood that a person is awake and not invalid, for lack of better words, would increase the chance that they may notice a small fire or a fire starting slowly? Don't think so at all. I think it's high.
I'll overrule that. I don't think it's legal.
Thank
Yes,
you.
I would take that
Jelly
into
bean.
consideration. The general condition of a person and how quickly they discovered the fire or they could take action about the fire, both mental and physical state.
I mean, this kind of goes without saying, but does smoke have a smell to it?
typically.
Do electrical fires have a certain smell to them?
They do, and sometimes they're associated with sound,
What kind of sound?
like an arcing sound. Not everyone. Electrical fires is kind of a broad category, and I gotta be very careful to try to lump one generalization to all
What does an
electrical
arcing
fires.
sound like?
When you describe an arcing sound, is it like an electrical current kind of sound? Like the sound of
If you take two wires and you touch them together, and it's going to go, you can hear the zap pop, and usually if you're holding the wires, you usually jump.
Fair. Thank you. Just want to make sure everyone understood that in case people haven't played with electricity. What was the next? So at that point in time, I guess, were you able to eliminate electrical?
I eliminated electrical as a fire cause at that point.
What was the next hypothesis you would have tested in this case?
That reminds me of the maintenance man that we had at the nursing home where I used to work. He was such an idiot. He was up in the ceiling one day and he's looking down at us. There's like 3 of us gathered together talking. I think it was me and a couple of nursing assistants. There might have been another nurse there. I don't remember exactly. He looks down at us. He's got the ladder there. He's half on the ladder and half up in the ceiling doing something. I don't know what he was doing. And he looks down at us and he goes, "Y'all know CPR, right?" And we're like, "Of course we do. Why?" "Because I'm coming up here to fix the wire and I just wanted to make sure." And we're like, "You're kidding, right?" And he's like, "No, I'm serious. Y'all do know how to do CPR." And we just looked at each other and we're like, he's an idiot. He is an idiot. Thank God we didn't need to do it, but
Examined and considered the fireplace for a hypothesis. On the day of my exam on the 8th, I believe I was aware that there could have been a fire in the upstairs fireplace from the information that was passed to me by the sheriff's department detectives.
If I can stop you right there, when we say upstairs, we're talking about the main floor of the house. Is that correct? Okay.
There's basement in the main floor, and if I misspeak, I say main floor, first floor. I'm meaning the main floor where the living room is.
Very good.
So I started examining the fireplaces.
exactly.
Let's look at photo 19.
Exactly.
Is that photo 19 on the screen?
This is photo 19. This is the main floor fireplace. Before I talk about this, I just want to go to photo 20 real quick. Yes, that's photo 20. I documented what was inside the fireplace, and there is burnt wood in the fireplace. So that tells me there may have been a fire. And obviously, is it possible that fire debris during the collapse got in there? It's possible, but unlikely, because the collapse is going to come straight down versus jump sideways. This is likely it's probable that there was a fire in that main floor fireplace. Now we can go back to 19. So I'm examining the fireplace. To understand the construction of this fireplace, this is a modern fireplace versus I'll call an old time hand-built fireplace. Old time hand-built, 150 years old. They were built piece by piece with stone or brick, made the firebox where the fire actually was built. There was a brick or clay liner in the chimney that went up to carry the smoke out. Typical modern fireplaces are a contained steel box, and that's what you're looking at there. And out of the top of the steel box is a steel round chimney pipe. Sometimes it's referred to as a vent or a flue, and that was round connected at box and then up.
Knock it off. StreamYard, knock it off.
On these walls, but that's just for decoration. The walls themselves are typically built of wood. And I refer to that as the chimney chase. So that's the area, area inside or around the fire, the chimney, the metal chimney, that's separating that chimney from the rest of the lots. Sometimes they'll have OSB on there. It varies on construction, but that's a chimney chase. If there is, so I'm considering ignition, see the chimney functions. I've seen it where holes have developed in chimney pipe. So now the hot gases from the smoke that go up the chimney can escape the chimney itself and get into this chase area. Now this chase area is built with, especially in this case, you can see it's built with wooden structural members. So that those wooden structural members have some sort of sheeting on the outside. Could be OSB, could be drywall. That's going to contain, just like we talked about earlier with the laundry machines. If that hot smoke or gases are in that chase, that's going to contain that hot gases and eventual fire for a while inside that chase. The fire inside that chase is going to go up, typically burn out the roof at the top of the chase.
Sorry, guys. I don't know what's happening today. I turned off my channel. I guess I'll get out my iPad because it works better. when I do it from my iPad and not directly from my computer. Network.
You can straighten it up and you can see where it's would be. And there's one that's missing directly above it, of the fireplace. This is the area where there should have been one. You can, if you know what you're looking for, right at the bottom, you can see the still has clean wood and burns. So like I mentioned before, that likely had drywall on it up and
What is the deal today?
damage there. That's significant in considering this as a chimney fire or a fireplace fire. This is the chimney pipe that I collected from inside the structure. Later, yesterday we talked about excavating. Later, I would excavate then it would be the basement floor, but had the debris from both the basement, main floor, and the roof directly above in this area. This chimney pipe was located. I moved it out and I put it here. I examined it and nothing extraordinary came to my attention. Obviously, if you look at it, it's bent, it's burned, but remember there was a whole house burning on top of it at one point. So, and the collapse happened. That's going to disform the metal, disform the pipe, and it was under burning roof sections for a while. So there is fire damage. But that being, what I discovered is there was nothing obvious to me that would indicate there was something wrong with that chimney. And that also states for the fireplace itself. I didn't find anything obvious with the metal fireplace box that would show that it malfunctioned or there was something wrong with it. And that backs up with the lack of burning of the wooden stud members around it. At that point, I could eliminate the fireplace and chimney as a potential ignition source.
If I can back up then to number 19, I guess, and maybe I missed this, but can you explain why it is you would expect this stud right here to be burned?
If the fireplace was the start of the fire is going to be directly above the fire. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm doing that again. Is going to be directly above the fireplace, and that's going to be one of the first structural members that are going to burn.
And so I guess just by the dynamic, would we expect then, as it burns to the roof, hot material to be falling down on top of the fireplace? Or what are we?
It depends if we're talking about the fires in the chase or outside the chase.
Inside the chase.
If it's inside the chase, the fire's going to go up inside the chase. If it burns the roof section, that'll eventually burn and fall down into and sit on top of the fireplace itself. I've seen fires in new houses before where the cellulose insulation will fall in. And on top of that firebox, it'd start the fire on top of that box, of the firebox. But the fire is inside the chase, sitting on top of that metal firebox, not in the place where the fire is supposed to be, which is surrounded by like fire bricks. So yes, if the fire was down there, we'd expect to burn off that area.
And what other hypothesis did you consider as to the cause of the fire?
The possibility of a log rolling out of the fireplace. The entire living room was consumed. The floor, the furniture, the whole thing was consumed. So by looking at that hypothesis, that was more of a mental examination of the fire dynamics. So we think about, okay, what would happen if a log on fire rolled out into the room? If that burning log is sitting in the middle of the room, the fire from that log is still going to go up. It's going to start burning the floor underneath it. But for the fire to spread from that log, it's going to take a significant amount of time. And when I mean significant, I mean it's going to take several minutes for it to really spread, versus if a log rolls onto your floor in your living room, the whole living room floor isn't going to burst into flames. It's going to take a while for it to progress. Same thing if that log, let's say, rolled all the way over and was up against a couch. The couch is going to catch fire, yes, but if you would watch it, it would start at the log, it would start slowly moving up and into the couch and start slowly spreading on the couch. And of course, as it's doing this, it's giving off smoke and heat that would be easily detectable by someone in the house before it could spread to the entire living room area. So with that, that dynamic eliminates the log hypothesis as a fire cause.
And if I can kind of circle back to the idea of a chimney or a fireplace fire, you indicated that those are kind of it takes time for the heat to build up before that fire can erupt, for lack of better words.
Because yes, the main heat is contained in the firebox and in the chimney. How that heat gets out usually comes from a small, like a chimney, even a chimney fire. It's a chimney fire that escapes the chimney. It's coming through a small hole. So that's all the heat has to come through that small hole until at some point it ignites the surrounding chimney chase. That can take time. Obviously, times are very subjective depending on how close the combustible materials are to the chimney, how long has it been, and how old is it, the materials that are made of. So that's very subjective. But yes, it doesn't. If you have a hole in your chimney, you start a fire, it's not going to the whole thing isn't going to burst into flames. There's going to be a progression.
In that progression, would there be smoke?
There would be.
And is that something that a person who's not would notice within the residence?
He's investigated these in the past. I think it's fairly reasonable.
I'll allow it.
A typical person should notice smoke in their house. Where that, again, every fire is a little different, so I can't say if this would have been chimney fire exactly how the smoke and heat would have progressed.
Fair, thank you. And so we've talked about a log rolling out, and you have eliminated that. What is your next hypothesis that you went to?
One of the hypotheses I considered was during the initial interviews with Linda Stermer, she mentioned that there was some oil candle on I believe it was the half wall between the living room and the dining room on the north side. Again, I considered that. Again, that is a small fire source. I don't know what this oil candle looked like. I'm using generalization terms. I'm assuming it is a normal, could be as much as a lantern, an oil lantern, or a smaller candle that's from.
Well, then, yeah, he's describing what are possible oil lanterns that he's encountered. So I think it's He's even said he doesn't know what it was, but he's just describing what they could be.
Oh, no,
I was getting information that there was an oil candle in the area. Do not know the size or makeup of it. But if this candle broke or tipped over, again, the fire is going to be relatively small. And it's going to be contained over towards the area of where it was located, which is the half wall towards the north side of the living room. That did not, again, that also has a hard time meeting the challenge of going undiscovered until it was a very large fire.
And these oil lamps, are you familiar with what type of fuel they burn?
The typical oil that these lamps burn are lamp oil. It would actually, if it's tested in a lab, it would come back referred to as a heavy petroleum distillate, which is the same as kerosene or diesel fuel.
And in this case, did you ever receive any lab reports that there was a heavy, which you just described here in court, present in the Stermer residence?
There were, in the lab results back, there were no indications of a heavy petroleum distillate.
Thank you. And what was the next hypothesis you would have considered?
The next hypothesis I considered was an intentionally started fire. With this hypothesis, the one piece of data on this date, I had smelled accelerant on Todd Stermer's pants. I later learned to further that hypothesis, I waited until I got lab results. I got the lab results back that Todd Stermer's pants had gasoline on them. So I took that information and said, does that fit what I have at the scene? So with a gasoline is on Todd Stermer, and Todd Stermer is also severely burned. So remember I talked about burns on people are also burn patterns. Just like looking at the structure, the burns on Todd Stermer indicated he was at or near the.
Move the strike. One, he's not a medical expert, and under Smelser versus Norfolk Railway, he can't testify to medical conditions.
He's not testifying about a medical condition. He's talking about the burns. It burns
He's
right on
talking
his
about
body.
causation.
Sorry.
Thank you. He's talking about causation, burn patterns causing whatever this degree of injury is. That's a medical opinion he can't make.
I don't think that's what he was testifying to. I think
Just
Mr.
asking about burn pattern.
Yeah.
How about turn? Can you turn around so they can see your cute face?
Thank you.
You're so uncooperative.
As a result, burns on a person is a burn pattern. It is stated right in NFPA 921
You're
that
so uncooperative.
burns on a human is a burn pattern.
You just mentioned NFPA 921. We haven't heard that here in court yet today.
Oh,
What is that?
okay.
What is that, please?
NFPA 921, it's a long acronym. The NFPA stands for National Fire Protection Association. The National Fire Protection Association puts out volumes and volumes of information about building construction, safety precautions, anything to do with fire. And there's so many of them, they give them a number. So the specific number, NFPA, National Fire Protection
We're not on
Association
screen, Shadow.
921,
Hold up.
is the document that the National
Wait,
Fire
I can't
Protection
see you
Association
yet.
puts out as
Now
a
I
guide to fire investigations. And that is updated, well, now it's updated about every 3 years.
Guide, or has it also been considered a reference manual?
It's a guide, it's a reference manual.
Very good. So again, we just talked about, you considered the burns on Todd Stermer. How is that relevant to your determination of intentionally set fire?
We know that Todd, with the burns on Todd, I know he is at or near the area of origin. And with the gasoline, positive for gasoline on his sweatpants, that says there is gasoline at the area, at or near the area of origin. Now, the gasoline at the area of origin actually fits the description of a fast-moving fire, where a whole, instead of a small individual area, the whole area is on fire at the same time.
Look at there you go.
Well, let's go this way. Does the statement of Linda Stermer that you reviewed factor into this as well?
Linda Stermer's statement is very important to the factor.
Why is that?
Because Linda Stermer was at the scene. She was in the house. She was able to give statements. Witness statements are very important. Her statement was that she was in the basement. She heard Todd upstairs scream.
Can I have a hug now? Can I have a hug?
She ran
Please?
upstairs and she
Can I have
saw
a hug? Can I
the living
have a
room on
please?
fire.
Can I please have a hug?
Subsequent statements, that was the initial statement I believe she gave the detective route. Then later statements were more specific. It says, started the same in the basement, heard Todd scream, ran up the stairs, described seeing the recliner towards the north side of the living room on fire. Todd was towards the south in the living room with his upper torso on fire. And there was fire on the floor between Todd and the recliner. That description of a very quick starting fire, of she's in the basement, she's awake, and she hears a scream, that would be in. Then she goes upstairs and finds this large fire, not concentrated in one area, but it's spread in two areas across the room with a connecting fire between. That is an indication of a fast fire, which would be explained by the presence of an ignitable liquid, gasoline, which would lead to, there's been no evidence of why gasoline should be in the living room. That would to lead me to believe this is an intentionally set fire.
Now, additionally, the, for lack of a word, trail of fire from essentially one side of the living room to the other was described by Linda Stermer. Is that what your testimony was?
Yes.
And in your line of work, is that described as something?
It can mean several things.
Okay.
I'd prefer just to leave it at that statement.
Okay, fair enough.
Why leave
So
it?
your conclusion, based on your review of the evidence, and so I'm summarizing the gasoline and what was described by Linda Stermer, is this was an intentionally set fire. Is that correct?
Correct. And this also, I also use this to confirm my origin determination. She says the origin is in the main floor, first floor living room.
And so we've already kind of talked about what the first fuel ignited is earlier. Do you have an opinion as to what the first fuel ignited in this case was?
Yes, I do.
What was that?
The first fuel ignited was fumes from the gasoline.
And let's talk about that a little bit. How does gasoline burn, for lack of a better way to describe it?
Gasoline, as we know, is liquid. We put it in our lawnmowers and our cars. People who are unsafe sometimes try to use it to get their leaves burning. When you burn gasoline, it's actually not the liquid that burns. It's the vapor that comes off the gasoline that burns. So if you've ever seen videos of people pour gasoline on a pile of leaves and then they start walking up to it with something to light it, and it catches on fire before they get to the pile of leaves, that's because the vapors from gasoline, the liquid gasoline has now evaporated and spread into a vapor cloud until it hits an ignition source, and then it ignites.
And does the fact that the gasoline may be indoors or outdoors affect how that may happen?
The environment as a whole, indoors or outdoors, is going to affect is there a wind, the temperature, if it's hotter outside, the gasoline is going to evaporate quicker. Any air currents are going to move the vapor around.
And in this case, I've already asked you what the ignition source. Did you determine what you believe to be the ignition source in this case?
The ignition source would have been open flame.
Do you have any idea what the source of the open flame may have been?
I do not know definitively what the open flame would be.
But we do know there was a fire burning in the fireplace per the statements of Linda Stermer.
There was open flame in the living room from statements and indications that there's logs. So there would have been open flame in the fireplace.
Now, we've talked about what you kind of touched on it already. What is a flash fire?
A flash fire is almost self-descriptive. It's a fire that immediately propagates quickly, like a flash. It goes very fast. It would be indicative of a gasoline fire.
So, for instance, when the vapors of a gasoline poured someplace are exposed to an open flame.
Correct. It's the vapors are going to ignite. The fire and the vapors are going to spread to the source, which is typically going to be the liquid gasoline, because that's where the source of the gasoline vapors came from. And then the fire is then going to make the liquid gasoline evaporate faster because it's hotter, and then it'll be burned more, and it'll burn faster until the gasoline, in some cases, is burned up.
And that was my next question. Can fire totally consume gasoline,
Yes,
leaving no trace?
it is possible. Yes.
And just so the record's clear, and Judge, I'm going to ask this as a leading question so we don't go afoul of anything. You are not offering any opinion here today as to who set this fire, correct?
No.
You have just a moment, Your Honor? Just one last question. I am sorry. I neglected to ask this. You indicated earlier there was a fuel oil furnace in this house. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is fuel oil different from gasoline?
It is.
How so?
So they're both petroleum products, but they're refined differently. If you were to take fuel oil and submit it to the laboratory for analysis, that would come back as a heavy petroleum distillate. The lab, and if you ever had Troy Ernst, he probably described this better than I did, but it is a different than gasoline. Gasoline can be determined specifically, where the other petroleum distillates are put into broad categories of heavy, medium, and light petroleum distillates. Fuel oil would be a heavy petroleum distillate along with kerosene and some lamp oils.
Thank you. Nothing further. Thank you, Your Honor.
Not to discuss the case or do any research. CDL. Jury has left. Any matters to address in the break?
I have none, Your Honor.
Defense, any matters to address in the break?
I'm sorry,
Any
Judge.
any matters to address in the break? Any matters to address? Okay. Thank you.
We're on break. I just went to get something to drink. Did state finish?
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
You and I have met before one time, correct?
Yes,
June of 2001?
I'll take your word for the date.
Okay, I'll give you, take my word, it's the 16th and 17th of June, 2021, now one.
That sounds correct.
And I asked you a bunch of questions, right?
Yes,
And you were under oath?
yes,
And so we look back at that testimony, we can take that as the truth. Fair?
depends on how much you take of it.
I'm sorry?
Depends on what you take of it, but yes, the truth.
We agree as we start here, if you don't have cause of fire at being suggestional or intentionally set fire, we don't have a arson.
That is correct.
Okay. And we'll talk about the classifications, but you and I talked about that before, right?
Yes,
There are 4 classifications of fires.
I'm going to clarify with her where this referring.
All out if you understand the
Thank you.
question.
Let me break this down. You and I talked about this before, right? There's an accidental fire, correct?
correct.
That could be a toaster burned up. Fair?
Yes,
We have natural causes of fires. That would be lightning strikes, that kind of thing, right?
correct,
Then we have what's called undetermined.
correct,
You just can't tell, right?
correct.
And sometimes the damage is so big and so much that you can't tell, right?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. And it's not an embarrassment to you as a fire origin and cause expert to be able to say, I just can't tell. There's not enough here.
That's
Fair?
correct.
It wouldn't be embarrassing to you, right?
That's correct.
In fact, it would probably be intellectually honest to admit, I just can't tell. Fair?
That is correct.
Then we have an intentional or an incendiary fire, it's called, right?
Correct.
And that would be, excuse me, correct me if I'm wrong, but an intentionally set fire under circumstances where a fire shouldn't happen.
Yes,
And that's what you're calling this,
correct.
an incendiary fire.
Yes,
And that's the one that supports a crime.
correct.
And out of those 4 categories, only an incendiary fire supports crime, correct?
Not necessarily.
If you can't, let's go back to one
No,
thing.
okay, not necessarily. The crimes can be prosecuted with an undetermined cause. I've seen it in the past.
Okay. If you don't have a cause of a fire, you can't find the classification of the fire. Fair? You can't tell what
Correct.
happened. You said the origin is the where, correct?
Correct?
And the cause is the why.
Correct.
And if you don't have the why, you can't say a crime occurred. Fair?
I don't make the determination if a crime has occurred.
If arson, I'm just talking about arson.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. I think we're asking for legal conclusions at this point in time. Prosecutor's office could charge a crime based on an undetermined fire. He's already testified to it, so I think we got asked to answer those. So we're asking for legal
The
conclusions.
question is simply, if you don't have the cause, the why, you can't even classify the fire. You can't even classify the fire because you can't tell why it happened, right?
Well, the classification you just said was undetermined.
Quit asking
You
questions.
can't tell why a fire
There's
happened.
an
You
objection.
can't classify it, right?
Objection asked and answered.
Yeah, I didn't get an answer for him.
Yeah, all out. I
Yes
didn't
or no?
hear the answer.
If I can't tell the what,
Dude.
the why, then it would be classified as an undetermined fire.
Okay.
Here, Nancy, I have plenty.
Let's talk about this excavation you said that you did, all right? On January 8th.
Yes,
On January 8th, you did an excavation, and as we know, the living room was the area of origin, correct?
correct.
I'm going to show you, we've already admitted this as Exhibit O, floor plan of the living room. You've seen this before, right?
I have not.
Does that represent to you what the floor plan of the house looked like?
Yes,
Okay. And you know that the living room, as you said, was the area of origin of the fire, right?
correct.
And you excavated that to get important data.
I excavated the basement that was below the living room.
The living room, you showed a photo, it collapsed into the basement.
Correct,
So anything regarding the living room would have been in the basement.
correct.
And you've testified that that was 2 feet of rubble, correct?
I didn't say 2 feet of rubble.
Okay, let's look.
Hey, my little friend.
If I may approach, Your Honor? Thank you. I've got your prior testimony from this case. Why don't we look at the part that says Dalbear 1? Okay,
I really hate
I
this
guess
one.
I can, Your Honor, as to the form of the way the question's being asked, was he asking about 2 feet of rubble today or now at the previous hearing, I think is where we're going, but I think it's confusing people.
you have testified that the area,
If you could just clarify what he's saying now, and then are you
You're-
pursuing prior inconsistent or?
you're
refresh
telling us
memory?
you don't know how deep the rubble was in the basement that you excavated?
No, you asked me if I testified to 2 feet of rubble. And
Do you admit there's 2 feet of rubble in the basement?
Approximately 2 feet of rubble. That's an approximation. I never measured it.
Could be 3.
I never measured it.
Okay. If there's 2 feet of rubble, and we know from the living room that it's 18 by 18, you see that?
Yes.
Yes?
Between the 118,
18 feet. This was 18 feet.
okay.
And there's a little bit of more. You'd have to add the area too, right?
Yes,
Do you know how to do that? Add, calculate that area?
Yes.
Sines, cosines, tangents, Pythagorean theorem?
I'm aware of how to do area.
Can we agree, like we had before, that that's about the total 20 by 20, roughly?
I'm just looking at the 118 and there's no 18, but that's, 18. Yes, that's 18 by 18 with a little bit left. I didn't see the 18 at the bottom.
Okay, we say roughly 20 by 20?
Yes,
Okay. Now, that's the area of origin, correct?
yes.
And if we took about a 20 by 20, if we measure from you roughly about to that first row, it's about 20 feet.
I don't know how far that is. 20, the first row, it's a little further than that, I think, but you have the measuring tape.
Would you like to hold the one and we'll measure it? Thank you. If I may.
Oops, sorry. I actually didn't mean to do that.
That's the dummy end. Say, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and about 20 feet right here.
Okay?
We good?
Yep.
And if I told you that 20 feet was about, thank you, I'll go. From the jury box to about here,
Approximate.
approximately. So we have an area of origin in the living room of this whole area here, correct?
Correct.
And you can't narrow it down where the fire started amongst anywhere in here.
I
correct?
cannot.
Could have started over in this area over here, right? Could have started by the fireplace,
Not against the fireplace.
but anywhere in here, you don't know.
Correct.
But you dug out the rubble, right?
Yes.
In this 18 by 20 by 20 spot. right?
Yes.
2 feet of rubble, correct?
Approximately.
And you had a person with you, Greg Stormzan from Michigan State Police,
Yes,
and you deposited the rubble, as I believe, on the west side and the back side of the house, correct?
I would have. Yes.
Well, you did, correct?
Yes.
Put it on the west side of the house,
Yes.
and you cleared the basement, because that's how you do it, right?
I
You gotta-
clear, not the entire basement, just the area underneath the living room.
So there would be basically a clear area of 18 by 18 in that house if somebody came after you, correct?
Yes.
You made this rubble pile, and this rubble pile should be, well, if we say 20 by 20 by 2, that's 800 cubic feet, right?
I don't know how much the rubble pile would have been.
Well, you didn't do 800 cubic feet of excavation and put that outside, did you?
I have no idea.
Did you create a rubble pile of approximately 4 feet by 8 feet and 7 feet high?
It was not a 7-foot high pile.
Let's go to your testimony at that Dalbert hearing on 162, lines 7 to 11.
Your Honor, will you approach real quick?
You there?
Yes, on the first page, yes. Daubert 1, yes.
Well, just prior hearing on page 162 at line 7. You with me?
(162) line, what line?
Line 7.
Line 7.
You had been asked, so outside the house was the area that you laid all the debris, correct?
Yes.
Your answer. Again, we didn't lay it out, so it was placed in a pile. The pile, in my recollection, would probably have been 3 or 4 feet by 6 or 8 feet and 7 feet high. But I don't have a great recollection of the size of the pile after we excavated, right?
Correct.
So if somebody came after you, were there on the 8th, like somebody on the 15th, a week later, we should see behind the house a picture of a 4-foot by 8-foot by 7-foot high pile of rubble.
I have no idea what the rubble pile would look like after I left.
Well, do you think somebody would have taken it and moved it?
No,
You
but it's
think-
possible.
You think somebody would have put it back in the house?
I have no idea.
Okay. The pile,
Why do we care about a rubble pile?
the rubble that you would have been removing, and I'm going to show you defendant's exhibit B. Tell me, these are your photos?
Your Honor, are we meaning all of his photos or just a selection of the photographs?
Select photos. One I gave you yesterday, counsel.
No, I understand that. Are they just
They are select photos, not every photo.
I respect that, and I understand. Are they separated from a giant exhibit of other photographs, or are they just?
They are in exhibit B by themselves. You tell me if those are your photos.
So you want him to review the entire binder right now?
No,
Oh,
they're just
okay.
15 photos.
Which 15 though?
Hold on. I want to make sure. Is this exhibit B? I will.
Know which ones to look at?
Yes.
Okay.
These are the photos look like that have been previously entered into evidence by the prosecution.
The same, some are different.
Under B is the same as defense 34-9. But this one's very dark. Okay. Would you like me to continue?
Pardon?
Would you like me to continue through B of photos?
Please. All those photos you identified for the prosecutor, you had reviewed your photos before this trial, right?
Yes,
And you identified those easily as your photos, right?
correct.
And these are, a lot of these are just duplicates of your photos.
But I'm going to make sure.
To determine that.
56 is the same photo as 3411 with the prosecution. '57 is one of my photos, but not with the prosecution exhibits. 58 is one of my photos. It's in the prosecution exhibit 3412. '59 is my photo that is the same as People's 3410. '61 looks to be the same as 3418. '62 is one of my photos that is not in the People's exhibit. '75 is the same as People's 3425. '96 is one of my photos and is similar to People's 3413. I think this might be a different photo of the same shot. '123 is the same as People's 3421. '138 is one of my photos, but not in the prosecution photos.
Okay,
And that finishes up B.
that's all. Move for the admission of Exhibit B, 1 through 15.
Objection.
What'd you say, 15?
15.
1 through 15.
Thank you. So if we look at page, photograph 62 there. You can look up on the screen if you'd like. We can see good.
Yes.
We can see that fireplace in the basement, right?
Yes,
Right here. So basically what we're showing is the living room area, and the living room extends out toward the bay window to the left.
no,
right?
this photo's taken from underneath the bay window.
Okay. You're saying the fireplace is directly across from the bay window. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Where you have the FP on
So
your drawing.
what I'm seeing then is entirely the living room.
Yes,
Now,
or the basement under the living room.
the living room that had collapsed and had the 2 feet of rubble that you excavated and cleared, you and Mr. Stormzan.
Yes,
So if somebody like Mr. Shinsky came and Mr. Shinsky took a photo a few days later, what we should see is photo of the back of the house where you laid it out, right? Am I correct?
yes,
And what we should see somewhere in here in the back west side is a pile 7 feet by 8 feet by 7 feet high, correct?
I do not see that there.
You certainly don't. You also didn't document the excavation due.
I did not take a photograph of the excavation once completed. That is a mistake that I have admitted to, and it's a mistake on my part.
You know the importance of documentation, correct?
Correct.
Important for corroboration, correct?
I've got some.
Okay.
It's important for corroboration, correct?
It is important to document the scene.
Because you want to have corroboration in case somebody asks you, did you actually do some excavation? You want to be able to show proof.
Correct.
That's called corroboration. True?
You can call it that.
Okay. You didn't take any photographs, right?
What do you mean didn't take any
Of your
photographs?
excavation.
Yes,
You didn't write in your report, your official Michigan State Police report, anything about an excavation, correct?
I think there may have been a section, but without reviewing my report, I can't be sure.
Well, did you testify in a hearing that you didn't document it in your report?
I may have.
And if you testified in that hearing, that would have been under oath,
Correct.
and you had reviewed your file,
Correct.
and you reviewed your report,
Correct.
and you told us the truth when you told us you didn't put it in your report.
Correct.
You also didn't even take any notes during your whole scene inspection, did you?
What is your definition of notes?
Well, things like the jury is taking down to document you did what you did. Did you take any notes, yes or no?
I dictated the scene examination directly into the report on a recorder. For years, been doing this 20 years, I typically don't take copious written notes on scene examination.
Okay. We don't have anything contemporaneous in terms of any notes of yours of the excavation itself, fair?
There are no notes of the excavation.
Okay. Even though that's such a critical aspect of fire investigation.
The notes aren't critical. It's the information in the report that's critical.
The excavation is critical in a fire excavation. The excavation process in a fire investigation is critical. Am I right?
Yes.
Because that's where you get the evidence that might show how the fire progressed.
That is a step that may develop evidence.
And that is a step where you collect data, it's called.
Yes.
And that data will help you find evidence that might point to the why, the cause.
Possibly.
You can't overlook doing an excavation when you're doing a fire investigation, right?
Depends on the fire investigation.
You testified that, you correct me if I'm wrong, that the reason you didn't take any photographs, make any notes, is because it was a long day that day.
I never said anything about notes. I did testify that there's no photographs that should have been taken. I don't know why I didn't take it. It's possible it was a long day, and because we didn't find anything of notable significance in the excavation, that it's possible I forgot to take the photograph.
Well,
Photographs of post excavation.
let me see if you turn to D2 there.
We're talking transcripts again?
Your book of the transcripts.
D2, what is that?
Last one. Last tab.
So when you say D, you're referring to Dauber, correct?
You can read from page 42 to yourself, line 13 to 16.
And I'm sorry to hear the expression read out loud, or,
To yourself.
okay. 42 to what lines?
Line 13 to 16.
Not my boy. Look it. Look.
Yes,
Does that refresh your memory that the reason you forgot to take a photograph or note your documentation was because it was a long day?
it does. Possible a long day.
You were tired
Yes,
after a long day.
yes.
So you didn't document this critical aspect because you were tired because it was a long day. Fair?
Question asked and answered, Your Honor.
Let me ask you something. You've trained fire investigators, right?
I have.
Okay. If you had a rookie fire investigator you were training, would you accept such a poor excuse as, boss, I didn't do what I was supposed to do and take any pictures and notes because it was a long day. I was tired.
What do you mean accept it? Of course I would. Because if that's what happened, you're going to
Okay.
accept it.
Wouldn't you maybe ask that person, why didn't you go back the next day?
We're calling for speculation, Your Honor, correct?
Thank you. You would
I
ask
don't know
that.
what I would say, because it depends on the scene. Everything depends on the scene.
If he says that I didn't do it because it was a long day and I was tired, and he's a rookie investigator,
Calling Jack asked and answered, Your Honor.
you would ask him, why didn't you go back the next day?
Well, I'll allow this one.
Thank you. True?
I don't know what I would say.
Okay. Is there a law that says you can only go and do a scene investigation one day?
No,
Is there any Michigan State Police policy that says you can do a scene investigation only once?
no,
And after you were the law enforcement person responsible for the scene in terms of the fire investigation, right?
in terms of the fire investigation.
So after January 8th, you didn't come back anymore.
I did not.
And you released the scene to people like Mr. Shinsky, right?
Correct?
And Len McHugh, do you know him?
Yes,
He was on the scene a couple days after you,
yes.
right?
Whoops. You okay?
Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about your origin and the basis for your origin opinion. You went through a whole lot of things about how you ruled out various areas in the house, right?
Correct.
And if we look at New York skyline, let me get back on here. If we look at your investigation, I'll get it back in a second. You did the physical investigation, all the physical evidence led you to the area of origin in the living room, correct?
All the data.
All the data, including what you said was very important information from Linda Stermer, correct?
Correct.
Linda Stermer told you that she was in the basement, am I right?
I've never talked to Linda Stermer.
You
This
read
is-
a statement that Mr. Shinsky took an interview,
Yes,
but you relied on it, obviously.
yes,
And she said she's in the basement doing laundry. Yes.
correct,
She hears this horrible scream upstairs, right?
correct,
She runs upstairs.
correct,
She sees the living room on fire.
correct,
She sees her husband on fire by the bedroom, you said, right?
correct.
Have you ever burned yourself on a stove or anything in your life?
Yes,
Okay. That pain is immediate, isn't it?
yes, but
That
I'm not a
pain-
medical expert. I can't testify to that.
You certainly can testify to your own experience that the pain was immediate to you, right?
Yes,
I'm not trying to be funny with you. Are we clear?
Do burns hurt?
yes, sir.
I don't think that's appropriate.
I'm not
He's-
clear what
he's-
that last dialogue was
He's
about.
smirking
Okay,
at
well,
me.
you're being argumentative, so.
Oh,
You've had burns and they were immediate, correct?
Correct,
And they were painful, correct?
correct,
So one of the things that NFPA cautions you is if you have a hypothesis that violates the laws of physics, that's an invalid hypothesis, right?
I'm not aware of that section, but proceed.
One of the rules of physics, we talked about Newton's laws of motion
Yes,
before.
No objection, Your Honor. I think we're getting into areas that's not.
why
proper
are we
for
getting
trial.
into
It's not
Newton's
physics
laws of motion?
He's not a physics professor.
He's familiar with it and we agreed.
I'll allow some.
Thank you.
But I assume there's
Sir.
some relevance where
We're
you're going.
confusing
One-
the jury again.
Fundamental law is you can't be in two places at the same time, can you?
correct,
So if Linda Stermer is in the basement and she hears a scream and that burn injury is immediate, that means Todd Stermer caught fire and Linda was in a different room, correct?
correct.
Now,
Unless she's
let's talk
lying.
about some of the fundamentals of being an expert witness. One of the purposes, or one of the things you have to do is obviously collect all the relevant data.
You're right,
correct?
it's not.
Correct all the relative
It's
relative
not.
data that's available.
Relevant data
Relevant data that's available.
that is available to you. What's available to you are witness statements, right?
Yes,
You can interview witnesses, nothing stops you.
no,
You can go to building departments
correct,
to get house records.
correct,
Right? Do a lot of things that aren't just physically at the inspection site.
correct,
And that's all data gathering.
correct,
You can agree with me that in your fire investigation, you have to comply with the scientific method, correct?
correct,
Oh,
Can you
God.
describe that
The
for us?
scientific
Correct.
method again.
I'm going to show you what is proposed. Exhibit D. You've seen this before?
yes,
It's in your NFPA 921 book,
correct,
and it's what you follow,
correct,
correct?
correct,
And that's what you used in this case,
correct,
and this is what you followed in this case, correct?
correct,
And this would illustrate the steps for the jury, correct?
correct.
All right, I move for the admission of Exhibit D.
Object is relevance, Your Honor. It's also, I don't see why it's relevant to put this, can we not display it to the jury until the court's admitted it?
Obviously, the first
What is your marking on that? What is it?
Exhibit D,
D?
obviously, you said the first two steps are kind of the same in everything you do, or every assignment. Find the origin and cause of the fire.
Correct,
So the real work starts when we're talking about collecting data, correct?
correct,
When we collect data, you gather all the relevant evidence that you can to try to help you come to a conclusion, right?
correct,
The next step is you analyze all the data that you've collected, correct?
correct,
Then, once you've analyzed that data, then you develop a hypothesis based on, here's the evidence I have, could it be this?
correct,
Then you test the hypothesis, right,
correct,
to disprove the hypothesis, correct?
to prove or disprove, both.
You're telling our jury that it's to prove it or disprove it.
When you're testing hypothesis, yes. To try to disprove it, yes,
If you can't rule it out, can't rule out a hypothesis, then you have to collect more data or develop another hypothesis, right?
Say that again?
If you can't rule out a hypothesis based on the data, then you either have to get more data or develop a new hypothesis. Isn't that what NFPA 921 tells you?
Or so you've jumped down to testing the hypothesis, correct?
We're on testing hypothesis.
Okay. So you're testing the hypothesis to see not just if it's ruled out, but also if it's ruled in. You're testing it to see if the hypothesis is ruled out, then it's not a valid hypothesis.
It's an invalid hypothesis.
Correct.
Because you're able to rule it out from the
data.
From the data.
Correct.
And in this case, if the hypothesis was Linda Stermer was with Todd Stermer and somehow got gasoline on him, you're able to rule that out with the data, reliable data that you had that she was in the basement.
That was never a hypothesis of mine.
I'm asking you, you're an expert witness. If the hypothesis is that Linda Stermer somehow did something with gasoline to cause Todd to be on fire.
Your Honor, I'm going to object. Can we close, please?
I don't think he understands the scientific method. Either that or he's trying to make it fit what he wants to make it fit. Like he wants to make it fit his own little scenario instead of what it actually does.
Overruled.
Because the scientific method is broad.
So you're an expert witness. You're an expert in fire investigation. You develop hypotheses, right?
Correct.
And you measure it against the reliable data, correct?
Correct.
The reliable data, as we talked about, Linda was in the basement at the time she heard Todd yell.
Correct.
Assuming he's on fire, correct?
He's yelling and a fire's discovered on him.
Okay. If the hypothesis is Linda was with Todd Stermer and somehow got gasoline
I'll
on
look
him,
for it.
that's ruled out by your reliable data that she was in the basement.
That specific hypothesis, correct.
And there's other data that would suggest that Linda didn't have anything to do with any gasoline, isn't there?
I'm not aware of that hypothesis.
Well, how about Linda's clothes tested negative for gasoline?
Well, do you want me to?
Are you aware of
Why
that?
didn't you
I am.
start
I'm aware of other
with
data.
I want you
also.
to just want you to answer my questions. You're aware that Linda's clothes tested negative for gasoline, correct?
That is true.
You are aware that the Michigan State Police brought a canine in, and the canine did not.
I'm going to object. That's for hearsay, Your Honor. It's not evidence.
That's not
He's relied on that collection of data and then including canine evidence. It's in his report.
Now we're talking 703, just like we've been dealing with all over this. That's facts and not evidence.
I'll sustain that objection.
You rely on all kinds of data when you're developing your hypotheses, right?
Correct.
One of the pieces of data that you rely on is testing.
Lab testing,
Lab
correct.
testing. And you also rely on things like Michigan State Police canine experts being called to the scene. True?
Your Honor, I guess we're dancing around the subject again here. I'm going to object as relevance.
Relevance, it goes directly to the issue of
I've already
relevance.
sustained the objection, Mr. Moore. You can move on.
Were you present when there was a canine?
Objection, Your Honor.
Mr. Mueller, I've sustained the objection.
Okay. Are you aware, well, you were aware of the gray sweatpants, right?
Mr. Stermer's gray sweatpants?
Yes. You
Yes.
collected it.
Yes.
Right. Are you aware that they were 100% polyester?
I was not aware.
Data you could have collected.
It is possible.
Have you, in your past experience, tested the flammability of materials?
Look, Jack, I don't think he's an expert in textiles, Your Honor.
I'm just asking for his experience.
What is this man's problem?
The range of his expertise, I'll overrule.
Go ahead.
I have not tested, I do not recall testing flammability of polyester.
You've tested materials.
I have not tested materials.
Are you aware of what polyester is?
It's a synthetic material.
Synthetic material made of plastics.
Plastic polymers, correct.
And you understand that it doesn't just burn, it melts.
It can burn and melt at the same time.
Okay. So we talked about collecting relevant data. Then we also have, as one of the main aspects of being an expert witness and an expert in general, is you have to keep kind of like an open book policy of document all your investigative techniques, correct?
I don't understand what you're asking.
You told us about the importance of documentation,
Correct.
and the importance of documentation is so others can review your work.
Correct.
And then you can defend your work if people are criticizing it.
That's a portion of documentation. Yes.
Portion of documentation is your peers are going to review it, right?
Yes,
Your colleagues.
possibly.
And if you've said there was an intentional fire and you think it's arson and there becomes a criminal case, well, the defendant's expert needs to look at it as well.
I never called it arson. I call it incendiary.
Listen to me carefully. If you call something arson and it results in a,
I'm going to object. We've established that as a legal conclusion, and we should not be talking about that in this case.
I agree. I'll sustain that objection.
okay, if your opinions result in a criminal charge, the suspect or the defendant has a right to look at your stuff,
Correct.
and it needs to be complete.
They can look at all of my material.
And it needs to be complete and thorough.
They can look at all my material as is.
So they can compare what you're saying you did to what you did by your
Correct.
documents. Corroboration again, right?
Okay. Correct.
So we don't just have to take your word for it, right?
Correct.
And then finally, you have to kind of make a good faith effort, play devil's advocate with yourself, right?
Correct.
How could I be wrong, right?
Correct.
Did I miss something?
Correct.
And you did all that in this case
Yes.
to rule out all the things that you ruled out.
To rule out as many of the things that I could think of and that I had indications of.
Now let's talk about one thing here. This 921 book is the primary training guide for all fire investigations, correct?
It is the main text for training.
It is the main text that you've trained to, fair?
Yes.
It is the text that they test on when you've tested for certifications, right?
Correct.
So you've trained to this 921, you've tested this 921, and when you've taught young firefighters or fire investigators, you teach out of this book, correct?
That is one of the books.
One of the books. There are others.
What is
There are others.
wrong
There
with
are
this man?
authoritative reference guides.
Yes.
Why can't he ask questions like a normal attorney? Why does he keep going back to textbooks and training and scientific method and what was the other thing he did? I forgot what he did now. That was so stupid it ticked me off. He's just the laws of physics, Newton's laws of motion. Can you ask normal questions? Oh my God. You know, you're not supposed to make it this difficult for the jury. Unless he's doing this on purpose to confuse the jury. Maybe that's what he's doing. I don't know, but it's a mess. I can't even take notes when he gets up to cross-examine. I just write confusing the jury because he's crazy.
One might be the user's manual for 921.
That may be one.
One might be Kirk's fire investigation. You have that?
I don't know, but I have a copy.
You have a copy. John Lentini's book, Scientific Protocols for Fire Investigation, that's a reference guide.
That
too.
is a reference guide.
Have you used it?
I can't think if I have.
Do you own it?
Yeah, he's made sure that the jury knows that Burns hurt. Yeah, he did make sure that they knew that.
All these are resources for you to go to if you have questions regarding your field, right?
Correct.
And then, of course, I think the main guide for you would be a code of ethics, right? And how you do your work.
There's a personal code of ethics. Yes.
Okay. I'm going to show you what we've marked as proposed exhibit L. See if you recognize that. You can tell us what it is.
This is a quote from the IAAI Code of Ethics that is no longer valid because there's been an update.
You believe it to your core, don't you?
What?
You believe this statement to your core, don't you?
The outdated statement?
Yes.
No, Jack, I think he just establishes an outdated statement.
It's what,
Relevance if it's outdated.
because it goes to his code of ethics that he believes in. Whether it's outdated or not, he still believes
Maybe
in
you
the
can
statement.
inquire of him how it's outdated and what way, what's different.
Do you know why it's different now?
Yes, the IAAI committee met and updated the Code of Ethics in 2020.
Yeah.
I have a copy if you'd like.
Do you believe in the principle, I'm just gonna ask you, do you believe in the principle that you should be a truth seeker and not a case maker?
Yes.
You believe that's your core?
I don't use those word core, but yes, I believe it.
Let's go to your D1 hearing at page 66. Let me know when you're there.
Say 56, 5?
66.
66. Yes, D1, Daubert 1, page 66.
66. And we, from line 1 to 9.
Your Honor, I'm going to object because this questioning is based on the outdated statement.
That he said he believes in, Your Honor. I'm asking if he believes in a principle. It's simple.
He's basing it on prior testimony, so I'll allow.
Go ahead.
Which lines you want to review again?
1 through 11.
Yes. Yes, on line 9, my answer to that same question is I believe it to my core.
Correct. And what that means is being a truth seeker is you are not here to just get a conviction, right?
I'm not here just to get a conviction.
You're here to offer, you're supposed to offer your objective opinion.
I am here.
Supposed to offer an opinion. Form of the question. Your Honor.
Argumentative, Mr. Mueller.
Pardon?
It's argumentative.
You are here to offer your objective opinion,
I am.
which means you'd be open to new evidence if you hear it.
I would listen to all relative evidence.
And be open to new evidence and change your mind if it drives you that way, right?
What new evidence?
If it was properly produced and researched.
Now, can we agree that if you don't collect the data, you're violating the scientific method?
Available data.
If you don't collect all available data, you're violating scientific method.
And I'm going to go with that's relevant data. Clearly, there's an infinite amount of data out there, so it needs to be relevant data.
Well, you can't determine what's relevant until you collect the data. Then you decide. That's part of the analyzing, right? This is important, that's important.
But there's a portion of common sense of data collection.
Isn't it true that if you don't collect all the relevant data, you're violating scientific method?
Jack can ask and answer.
It is asked and answered, Mr. Miller.
I think it was a simple yes or no question.
All right, yeah.
I think he's answered it.
Does it matter?
If you don't analyze the data,
The judge told you
you
to not
violate the
ask
scientific
it.
method. Yes or no? We're on analyzing data, the next step.
It's a little different, but you can ask one more time.
Yes or no?
Correct. You must analyze the data.
If you don't develop hypotheses based on analyzing the data, you violated scientific method, correct?
You must develop hypotheses or theories.
If you don't, then you violated the scientific method.
Correct.
And then if you don't test those hypotheses, you're violating the scientific method.
Correct.
And if you fail to consider alternate hypotheses, you violate the scientific method.
Reliable alternative hypothesis.
Then you violate the scientific method.
Correct.
If you violate the scientific method, you have an unreliable methodology, don't you?
Correct.
Which means unreliable can't be relied upon, correct?
Correct.
That's what the
To
word
rely,
unreliable means.
To
Yeah.
have confidence in, to trust, right?
Correct.
And if you don't have a reliable methodology, then you don't have a reliable opinion, do you?
I think this has been asked and answered, Your Honor.
Haven't even asked it.
Yeah, it is asked and answered. I'll have you move on.
What?
You don't answer
What?
that question ever.
Oh my
One more
God.
time.
Thank you.
One more.
If you don't have a reliable methodology, you don't have a reliable opinion, do you?
Correct.
You've heard of the phrase garbage in equals garbage out?
I have heard that.
All right. Let's go to your cause opinion. Are you comfortable that you've explained the cause of the fire to this jury?
Yes.
You wouldn't change it, would you?
No.
You know, and as I remember from my notes, the cause of the fire was the ignition source was an open flame,
Correct.
and then the first fuel ignited was gasoline.
Gasoline vapors.
And that's the cause of the fire,
Correct.
which is why you then classified it as intentional,
Incendiary. Yes.
incendiary. Give me a second, Your Honor.
He needs to be.
Okay, give me 1 second.
You see the face he made at the judge? At that last objection? At her ruling. Not at the objection, at her ruling.
Mortimer, we're back. Let's go to NFPA 921. NFPA 921 speaks to cause, doesn't it? The causal factors.
Yes.
If I was a judge, you would not make that face at me. Oh no. You would be paying some money if you made that face at me. Absolutely. You would get sanctions.
I'm curious what this is going to be before the jury sees this, because I'm not sure what we're specifically looking for.
I'll show you, and this is not an exhibit, Your Honor, it's for impeachment and learning treatise.
Well, then he can impeach him with it, but it can't be displayed to the jury. It's not an exhibit.
I can read it or show it to the jury, just doesn't go back to the jury room as an exhibit.
I'll allow it for
Thank
demonstrative,
you.
for cross, but it won't go back to the jury.
Right. Sir, you recognize those causal factors?
Yes.
NFPA 921, the premier guide for your training lists what has to be found and determined for the cause, correct?
Correct.
The ignition source, the first fuel ignited, let me read that. And the circumstances that brought 1 and 2 together.
Correct.
Unless you have all 3, you don't have a cause of a fire, correct?
Correct.
Which means unless you have all 3, you don't have the why. Isn't that true?
The why of the cause of the fire?
Yes, that is the why.
Correct.
Okay. Let's go to 19.4.4.1. I'm happy to give you the book if you have it.
I do.
Well, I do agree with him on one thing. We don't know if it was her or Todd that started the fire. We do know someone intentionally started it, but we don't know
19.
which. He should focus on that instead of
Yes, 19.4.4.1.
the bull crap.
Let me know when you're there.
Yes.
So simply identifying a fuel or an ignition source by itself does not and cannot describe how a fire occurred. Did I read that correctly?
See? Why didn't he start with
Yes,
this?
that's an excerpt from that section.
Why didn't he start with
That's what that
this?
says, right?
Correct?
So
Instead of making
what it's
everybody
saying
angry.
is, if we have 1 and 2, but not 3, we don't have the cause of a fire, correct?
Correct.
You've given 1 and 2 to the jury. You're comfortable with that conclusion. You didn't give 3 to the jury. You don't know the circumstances that brought that open flame to the gasoline in this 20 by 20 living room, do you?
I don't, but there's an exception in 921 that allows for
Hold on.
that.
You don't have all 3 factors for the cause of a fire. Fair?
I do have all 3 factors.
You have the circumstances. You haven't given the jury the circumstances that brought the open flame and the gasoline together. The how. True?
That has not been discussed with the jury.
Okay. That was never discussed in your report, correct?
My report from 2007, it was
Yes,
not.
the official Michigan State Police fire report of this case.
The language has changed since 2007 with these specific monikers.
Oh, you updated your report?
No, I did not.
Okay, in your report, you never listed even an open flame. We can go to your report.
I did not list an open flame.
So you did not list gasoline, or strike that. You did not list first fuel being gasoline.
I did not.
And you certainly didn't list in your official report the circumstances that brought those 2 together. Fair?
I did not.
Then you've testified on several occasions, right? In this case,
Correct.
testified in 09, didn't you?
09, that would have been the first trial? Correct.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Is he fixing to open the door to something? What is going on? I need to know what is happening. There is something that they know that the jury doesn't. The way he said that has not been discussed with the jury leads me to believe that there is something that they know that the jury doesn't. And I want to know what it is. Because I'm nosy that way. That dude's reading a book.
Testified, excuse me, in a prior hearing in 2009, and you laid out what you said was the cause of the fire, right?
Yes.
And you didn't mention one time an ignition source being open flame.
I can't remember what my testimony was on that.
Well, let's look at what's called PE. PE in your binder,
I've got multiple. This binder?
transcript binder.
You see one that says PE on it?
The 09, right?
Called PE. I think.
It doesn't say P.
Oh, sorry.
But it says 09.
All
All
right.
right.
Direct your attention to page 49.
Yes.
You listed as the cause of the fire, time of day, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes.
Time of day, condition of the known people in the house, which means basically able-bodied people.
Correct.
And you said the fire started very rapidly, larger and more rapidly than an accident fire could have started.
Correct.
And then you tied it in with gasoline on Mr. Stermer's sweatpants, right?
Correct.
Which then caused you to say it's an intentional fire.
Correct.
All right. So when you testified that didn't lay out the circumstances that brought anything together, correct?
Correct. But there's still an
And then-
exception.
You can clear that up. You did not mention any of the circumstances, fair?
Correct.
Okay. Then you testified in 2010 and went through the same thing and never mentioned an ignition source of open flame, correct?
Correct.
Never
Well,
mentioned,
I don't know. I don't recall my testimony verbatim from 2010.
do you recall that the first time when I asked you, the first time you testified to an open flame and gasoline as an ignition, first fuel ignited, was in our hearing in 2021?
I recall that testimony.
Okay.
That being discussing the testimony, I don't recall if that was the first time that was mentioned.
In fact, to this date, in 18 years, you've never set forth in a report or testimony the circumstances that brought forth your open flame gasoline, correct?
I think I just did it today in testimony.
Didn't you just tell us you did 1 and 2, but not 3?
No, that I haven't explained. There's an exception for the 3 with the 1 and 2 being brought together.
You did not, in any direct testimony, set forth the circumstances that brought 1 and 2 together.
Objection hasn't answered.
He keeps disputing that he did.
Because you won't let him answer the question, Your Honor.
It's asked and answered.
Thank you. Now, in terms of, you certainly know the difference as to what a causal factor is in terms of ignition source, correct?
Causal factor? Yes.
That's ignition source and first fuel.
Correct.
And you've been under oath saying that the time of day was a causal factor, correct?
I've never used the word causal factor.
It was a cause of the fire.
No, it was a circumstance of the fire.
Is there anywhere in NFPA 921 that says time of day is a cause of the fire?
No.
There's no reference manual anywhere that you've been trained on that says time of day is a cause of the fire.
No.
Am I right?
Correct.
There's no authority that you've ever heard of that says time of day is a cause of the fire.
Correct.
Accidental fires happen all the time in the daytime, right?
Correct.
Then the next thing you had, and we can talk about that PE again at page 49, was 2 able-bodied people.
Correct.
Is there anything in NFPA 921, this principal guide, if there is, I'd like you to cite it for our jury and any peers who are watching, anything that says the condition of people are a cause of the fire?
It does not.
No authoritative guide, no somebody you look and respect has ever told you that, correct?
Correct.
You've never taught that, correct?
Correct.
You've never been tested where that was an answer as a cause of a fire. Two able-bodied people,
No.
am I right?
Correct.
Able-bodied people die in fires all the time, unfortunately.
Correct.
Just like disabled people, like you told us, right?
Correct.
You didn't mention that you've investigated many fires involving able-bodied people who were seriously injured or died. Fair?
That is correct.
And then, of course, another factor you said in that preliminary hearing was the speed of the fire, correct?
Correct.
Now, you know, sir, from all your training and expertise, that how fast the fire progresses is based on a lot of different factors, right?
Correct.
One of the factors is the construction of the house,
That is one.
because that depends on the fuel loads, right? That
More than just fuel loads. Depends on fuel loads, container size, room size, configuration.
fire will spread faster if you have more ventilation. It takes oxygen to feed a fire.
Correct.
So it's not simply a fire was fast and therefore it had to be an accelerant. Fair?
That is fair.
And certainly you can't rely on eyewitness testimony, the subjective testimony of who was burning fast.
Not by itself, no.
You were aware that when some of the first witnesses showed up, that they saw a fire coming through the roof on the north side of, not the north side of the house, on the back side of the house?
The west side, yes.
West side? Well, we don't have it here, right?
Correct.
By where the bay windows were?
It was, yeah, there were some statements of through the roof in the center of the house.
Don't put your exhibits by a furnace.
Your Honor, can I ask that we take some of these demonstrative exhibits down if they're not going to be used anymore?
Are you done with that one? It's on the screen. Is this something new coming out?
No, this is, I can see what this is. This is fine.
Mr. Mueller, if you could give
I'm
us
gonna-
the New York skyline, please.
I'll just go black, how about that? Early witnesses said that the fire was coming out of the roof on the backside and toward the middle,
Correct.
which one of the things you relied on,
Correct.
right? And the fireplace would have been here and toward the center,
Correct.
right? Just, so it says FP, right, fireplace?
Correct.
You would have to collect data in terms of maybe how the house was constructed to have a better idea of analyzing that data and developing a hypothesis that why the fire, you say, was so fast.
Data was collected through observations.
Okay. There's other available data, correct?
There may have been.
And you had access to that available data like building records, correct?
I assume I would have availability to building records. I did not look at any.
You chose not to.
I did not look at any.
You could have talked to Linda Stermer.
I could have.
You chose not to.
I did not.
That would have been obviously a very valuable source of data in terms of how the fire was, or the house was constructed.
Your
Fair?
Honor, can we approach really quickly because I want to be very mindful of what issue we're talking about here.
Oh, this man. And he's all over the place, too. His questions they're not linear. There's not like a logical progression of questions. They're just all over the place. I would be confused.
Sir, were
as
you,
hell.
excuse me, were you aware that the entire living room floor was nothing but OSB subflooring?
I became aware, I can't tell you when.
Okay. Not as of January 12 when you
What
issued
the
your
heck is
report,
that?
correct?
Does a jury know what that is? I don't
believe
know what
so.
that
Okay.
is.
Let's get a timeline. January 7, the fire starts, or fire happens, right?
Correct?
January 7, you're on the scene,
Correct?
take a couple pictures, and pictures of the body you showed, and also pictures of the house.
Correct?
You took 46 pictures, would that be correct?
I don't know how many I took.
If I tell you you took 46 that night?
That sounds about right.
I have been wondering about that. I wonder if he's like this all the time or just in court. He's an ass.
And then you took a total of 138, so you took from 47 to 138 the next day.
I took several pictures the next day.
Okay. And then, that was the 8th, and then the 12th, you learned the MSP results on the gasoline on the sweatpants.
That's
Yes?
correct.
And then you issued your report shortly after that.
Correct.
Okay. And the key, obviously, was the gasoline on the sweatpants.
That was an important piece of data.
That was the thing that lynched it for you, didn't it?
That was an important piece of data.
You know what a keystone is? Ever seen a keystone in an arch?
I'm aware Keystone architecturally, yes.
It's architecturally, and the keystone is the piece at the top, the single
Correct.
piece that holds the arch together.
Correct?
And then if it's removed, the whole arch falls.
Correct?
That was the keystone, wasn't it? For your opinion, gasoline.
Objection, argumentative.
I'll allow it for cross.
Thank you.
I would never use the word keystone. It was an important piece of data.
Let's get back to the construction of the house. You didn't know the floor was nothing but OSB with some rugs on it, right?
I did not.
You didn't know there was exposed 2x4s around the framing, especially around the whole bay window area.
Like press.
At the time of the investigation, I did not.
You didn't know there was a lot of other
Why would
exposed
you use
wood.
that for the floor?
We need to take the
Oh, sorry. Didn't even know I was doing it. Good, thank you. You didn't know there was a lot of exposed wood, uncovered, not drywalled in that first floor, correct?
I did not.
And that certainly would add to the ability of a fire to spread, correct?
It would.
Because as you know, if it's a lot of drywall doesn't burn, right?
Correct.
Were you aware, sir, as you were trying to rule out these hypotheses, that there was no final electrical inspection?
I was not aware.
Were you aware that there was no final mechanical inspection?
I was not.
Were you aware that the house didn't even have a certificate of final occupancy?
I did not.
That'd be important data to know, right? In terms of evaluating electrical sources, mechanical, that kind of thing.
If he ruled out
I did not have those
mechanical
information.
and electrical,
I did not have that information.
if he ruled
Now, you said you ruled out electrical as being a possible cause of the fire, right?
Correct.
Electrical fires happen all the time in this country, don't they?
Correct.
And they can happen behind the walls, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden you have a sudden fire you didn't even know, right?
They happen in the walls.
Okay. You do not have expertise in electrical house wiring, do you?
I'm not a licensed electrician.
You are not an expert in the electrical wiring of a house, are you?
I am not.
I think it's been asked and answered, Your Honor.
You didn't?
It's a little different, but I'll allow it.
Go ahead.
I'm not.
And on September or January 8th, you didn't hire somebody to help you with the electric.
that surprises me. I don't know what my dad built this house. It was just him and a contractor. But while he was building this house, we rented a trailer, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if a pipe burst or I don't know what happened, but my bathroom in that trailer was across the hall from my bedroom, and something happened, and we had water damage, and the floor sunk down, and I would literally have to till we got it fixed or till the landlord got it fixed. I would literally have to jump across the hall into the bathroom from my room because if I stepped in it, I would go through it because of the water damage. So that makes sense. But I never really thought about it before. But to have your whole floor made out of that stuff, if your house floods, you're not going to be able to walk down your floor. You're going to go right through it. And I don't know what that, now I'm worried because of our old pets that are incontinent now or stubborn, whichever. I don't know which it is. We want to pull up the carpet and put down, like, I say flooring because it's not wood. It looks like wood, but it's the pet safe stuff they can't scratch, but it looks like it's wood flooring. We want to do that, but if we have the OSB stuff, then it's probably messed up that too. So now I'm worried about that. Great. Now I have new fear unlocked. Thank you. Maybe. And that's why we think it's still, because Travis shampoos the carpet all the time. Like, way more than normal. Like, at least once a month, we shampoo the carpet. And we still have the smell. And so we're thinking, oh, it's soaked into the carpet pad. So that's why we still have the smell, because we can't get through the carpet to clean the carpet pad. So I don't know. We're going to have a mess. When we pull up the carpet, we don't know what we're going to find. It's going to be horrific. I just know it. Okay, back to the trial.
Electrical examination, did you?
Your Honor, we approach.
Oh, jeez. See, if I just waited, I could have told you that story while they were at sidebar. I mean, it's embarrassing, but I mean, it is what it is. I can't, they're animals, right? You know, like, I can't, they were potty trained at one time. They're old. So Spike is 10. He's not that old, but something has spooked him. He doesn't like to go outside. He'll go outside, but he doesn't stay out there half the time long enough to do anything. And something has spooked him. And, you know, animals feel vulnerable when they're out there doing their business. So he'd rather do it in the house. I don't know. And yesterday,
Never heard of the phrase, know what you don't know?
Yesterday, he went out 5 times. You guys remember how much I had to get up to let him out yesterday? He still pooped in the house. And Travis was like, well, you didn't watch him. I said, honey, I was busy. I couldn't go out and watch him every time you went outside.
Yes.
Smart to know what you don't know and stay in your lane. You ever heard of that phrase?
Oh, my God.
Correct. Yes, I've heard it.
Now, you don't have evidence, physical evidence of any ignition source, do you?
Physical evidence? No, there's no physical evidence of an ignition source. Well, there is physical evidence of a potential ignition source. That's the fireplace.
And candles.
And candles.
Which you would have to rule out according to the scientific method.
Correct.
By collecting data.
Correct.
You didn't collect data about the candles in your inspection, did you?
I did. The data for the candles were statements about the candles,
That they were,
that they existed.
okay, they were open flames.
Correct.
And one open flame was candles, right?
Correct.
One open flame was a fuel lamp, correct?
I don't
You
know.
don't remember that?
I don't know the fuel lamp.
Okay. And one open flame was a fireplace.
Correct.
You don't know which of those open flames were involved in this fire, do you?
I don't know of which open flame is involved in the ignition
Or any of them?
or any of them.
Okay. And you certainly don't know, well, let's talk about the gasoline on the pants. The gasoline on the sweatpants that tested positive, you said was a very, very important part of your conclusion.
I don't think I used that many varies. I think I just said important. Or,
Very important. Yes?
yes.
In fact, sir, you have no opinion on how long the gasoline had been on his sweatpants. Is that true?
That is correct.
Because you don't know where he was when he got gasoline on.
Correct.
You don't know when it happened in terms of what day.
I do not know when the gasoline got on the pants.
You don't know how it got there.
I do not know how the gasoline got on his pants.
You don't know how much gasoline was on his pants.
I do not know the exact amount of gasoline that went on his pants.
And you have no opinion as to how long it was on his pants, correct?
I have no opinion how long it was on his pants.
Therefore, you cannot rule out the logical possibility that it has nothing to do with this fire.
No.
Am I right?
No, you're not.
All right, let's back out. If you don't know how long the gasoline were on the pants, you don't know if he had gotten it on the pants a week before.
I know that the gasoline was on the pants.
100%.
At that time, I do not know when the gasoline got on his pants.
We don't know the last time the sweatpants were washed.
I'm sorry?
We don't know the last time the sweatpants were washed.
We do not.
But what you're doing is extrapolating, just saying he had gasoline on sweatpants, therefore gasoline must have been in the living room.
Because he was in the living room
Okay.
and near the area of origin.
Do you have any explanation for why his sweatpants didn't catch fire if they had gasoline on them?
They may have been covered, like a blanket or something may have been over them. They may have been something pushed together so there's not oxygen. Do I know exactly why? No, I don't.
Okay, when you're saying they may have, you're speculating.
I'm offering a speculative opinion.
And as an expert witness, you think offering a speculative opinion,
I do not know. Go ahead.
would you agree that experts should not speculate or
Hey,
guess?
Larry.
Opinions should come from a body of knowledge.
A body of scientific knowledge based on the scientific method, right?
Body of knowledge.
And as we agreed, garbage in equals garbage out, right?
Correct.
So if you are offering speculation as an opinion, what you're doing is misleading the jury, aren't you?
Sustained.
He never
If
said
you're
anyone
offering
put the gasoline
speculation
on him.
as an opinion, you're violating that.
It's asked and answered. It's asked and answered.
It's a different question.
I think it's asked and answered.
What? Nobody said that anybody
about that
put
red gas
gasoline
can
on his pants.
in the
Why
front
is he
yard.
doing this?
Oh, one thing, let's go back. One thing that in relying on Linda Stermer's statement,
It's like he's trying to get ahead of something that's not even been mentioned. It's like someone has said Linda poured gas on him. Nobody has said that. Did they say that in opening statements that she poured gasoline on him? I don't remember them saying she poured gasoline on him. Did they? Maybe they did and I just forgot. But it's like he's trying. Right. Right. So why is he trying to get him? Like he's trying to get him to say those, it could have had gas on it from days and days before. Nobody said that they had gas on them from that day. I mean, that's that is absolutely possible. There are some people that would do that. But the expert has no idea how the gas got on his pants. Which he could have just asked, "Do you know how the gas got on his pants?" He doesn't need to be argumentative about it. I mean, more than ask and answer, argumentative.
That she was in the basement, she came upstairs, all of a sudden she saw the fire, right?
Correct.
Then she ran out of the house, right?
Correct.
And all the information you had that she was running around hysterical, correct?
Objection, that's not evidence, he's testify to that, Your Honor.
Did you learn that from your,
Yeah, allow it with the foundation.
thank you. Did you read Mr. Shinsky's statement of Linda Stermer?
Yes.
Okay. Did you read anything about what the witnesses said?
Correct. Yes, I did.
And they were describing her as hysterical, right?
There were some descriptions of that. Yes.
Okay. So given that information, you can't rule out the possibility that Linda Stermer was surprised by the fire when she saw it.
Objection, cause for speculation.
Fair? Based on the evidence he has.
Well, Your Honor, but he's asking you to rule out Linda Stermer's surprise. How is he supposed to know how she'll react? He doesn't care.
I agree, it's cause for speculation, I'll sustain.
Okay. Let's talk about that red gas can that you picked up in the front yard. Remember that?
Yes.
Okay. You actually saw it the night before, didn't you?
I photographed, it was in a photograph the night before. I do not have an individual recollection if I took specific notice of it on the 7th.
Up that night.
I don't know.
Well, you certainly know that in a potential crime scene, evidence can disappear, right?
Yes.
And as you testified earlier, you thought this might be a crime scene when you saw blood on the front bumper of the car, correct?
Correct.
That's why you took pictures, correct?
Correct.
And then after that, you saw the gas can, but you didn't even pick it up.
I don't know if I saw the gas can or took notice of the gas can the evening of the 7th.
The next day, you picked it up, correct?
Correct.
Detective Rout, is she the one who pointed it out to you? Or she took a picture of it too?
I don't know if Detective Rout pointed out to me or not.
Certainly possible that you wouldn't have even noticed it or thought of it important on the 8th.
I don't know what that question is.
You don't know how the gas can got there, correct?
I do not.
You don't know where the gas can was before it got there.
Correct.
You don't know who put it there.
Correct.
In fact, if I look at your photograph 116 in your package from B, that's a gas can in the front yard, the picture you took, correct? Yellow stickers in the bottom right.
Yeah, B, what?
116.
116. There is no 116 in here.
It would be then in your, well, the picture here, do you remember taking that picture?
I do remember the picture.
Remember looking at that picture in direct exam?
Yes,
Okay, it shows the gas can.
it does.
Do you recall taking a picture of the more close-up picture?
Yes.
And if we see this picture, close-up, see the gas can, it's all dirty and muddy,
I do,
and the spout is all muddy,
correct?
and the
And
rest of the spout is broken. The rest of the spout is to the left.
correct.
As you sit here, sir, you have no idea if that gas can, 1 gallon gas can, has any connection to this fire, do you?
I do not.
Because to suggest that would be pure speculation on your part, correct?
Correct.
It would be intellectually dishonest if you suggested it, correct?
Correct.
In fact, if anybody suggested that a gas can had anything to do with this case, that would be misleading the jury, wouldn't it?
Sustain that objection, and it calls for speculation.
Give me 1 second here, Your Honor. I might be wrapping up. Oh. In order to arrive at your opinion that gasoline on the sweatpants means that it was there at the time of the fire, you're with me?
Correct.
You'd have to rule out that when any time period between the time of the fire and when you got there 3 hours later, gasoline could have transferred then, right?
There was no evidence of that.
Okay, let's work through that real quick. Todd Stermer was found outside the house by neighbors, right?
Correct.
Neighbors, Matheny in particular, throws clothes on him, correct?
At some point, yes.
You finally learned later that it was Mr. Matheny's coat that had the gasoline, that tested positive for gasoline too, correct?
Later, I did learn that that was Mr. Matheny's coat that was sent to the lab.
You thought it was Todd Stermer's coat. Somebody mislabeled it, fair?
Somebody mislabeled it. I don't know if it was me or somebody mislabeled it.
Okay. So you'd have to rule out the fact that maybe there was transfer of the gas from Matheny's coat to the sweatpants.
There was no indications of.
You would have to rule that out. That's a plausible theory.
Correct.
And that's why you do the whole scientific method.
Correct.
Then they transferred him in this dinghy boat called the John boat. Somebody describe it.
Yes.
And they transferred him to where he was finally found and workers worked on him, right?
Correct.
You would have to rule out that plausible scenario that maybe there was gasoline in that boat.
That was not a very plausible theory, but yes.
Okay. Even though you may not believe it, you still, as a scientific person, have to rule that out through the scientific method. True?
Correct.
Okay. So, and certainly, you know what expectation and confirmation bias is, right?
Yes.
NFPA cautions against that, correct?
Correct.
We talked about that, those as being a big no-no, right?
Have we
Yes.
previously? Is that
In
what you're
June,
saying? Yes.
Big no-no. Expectation bias is having an idea of what you think happened and then disregarding or ignoring evidence that doesn't fit, right?
Correct. It's not looking at all the data.
Confirmation bias is the flip side of the coin. Once you've arrived at a decision or an opinion, you ignore contradictory data right?
Correct.
Both violate the scientific method, don't they?
Correct.
Because if you do receive new evidence, you have to then reevaluate. True?
Correct.
That's the proper way to do it.
Correct.
So we have had testimony now that, and you smelled gasoline 3 hours later on Todd Stermer, right?
Correct.
Which led you to take the sweatpants.
Yes.
We've had testimony from 3 witnesses, Mike McCaney, Connie Calhoun.
I'm going to be objecting, Your Honor. I don't think he's aware of this testimony. He wasn't present in court to hear the testimony.
It's still setting up a question, Your Honor.
Maybe just do it more as a hypothetical.
Hypothetically, if 3 witnesses who were there, the first 3 people on the scene, said they didn't smell gasoline on Todd Stermer, you'd have to consider that, correct?
I wouldn't know what other people smelled or what they detected.
Have you told me in the past that you can't really consider that because sometimes people's memory are crazy when it's a stressful situation?
Oh, I never said the word crazy.
Not crazy. This was a chaotic situation, right?
Yes.
And when people are in chaotic situations, you've said that their memories aren't so good.
I don't recall saying that.
Have you been trained as a Michigan State police detective or trooper detective on how to handle stressful situations?
I've had a lot of training. I don't know if anything specific on stressful situations.
Well, you do shoot training, don't you? Or didn't you?
I did.
So you can handle, if there's a shootout, handle the stressful situation, right?
Well, that's 2 different things when you're asking about handling stressful situations versus firearms training. That's two different things.
Okay. Have you had training, sir, to teach you how to deal with shootouts?
Objection has been answered, Your Honor.
Relevance?
Dances around the
Relevance.
question. Relevance? It goes to how a trained professional might act in a chaotic situation versus a lay person.
Overrule it. I don't find it relevant.
You know, overrule the
I
objection.
sustain the objection.
Dude,
Even though you
Quit
didn't necessarily believe that the
arguing.
boat could have
Ask him
transferred
questions.
gasoline. There could have been gasoline in the boat that transferred to a sweat. You remember that?
Yes.
You still have to, you just told us you still have to analyze that as a plausible.
Your Honor, this can ask an answer.
I don't remember this question,
Right.
so I'll allow it.
You don't have to, or you still have to analyze it via the scientific method, correct?
Consider the data,
Right. And which means you got to collect data
collect data.
about the boat
Correct.
so you can analyze it,
Correct.
so you can develop a hypothesis,
Correct.
so you can test.
Testing the hypothesis and the analyzation of the data collected.
Okay. Did you take a rag and wipe anything on the boat?
I did not.
Okay, that would be data, right?
That would be a form of data.
Did you get any witness statement from Linda Stermer or her children about anything about gasoline in the boat?
I have seen statements from her children.
I'm talking about, you took a statement, yeah, you heard a statement from Linda Stermer, you read it.
Correct.
I'm talking about before January 12th, when you wrote your report.
I don't know what information was relayed to me by other detectives about, I don't know, I forget the question, about comments from the family. Is that what the question was?
About the boat, specifically about the boat.
I didn't, the only information I was told is the boat was used to transport Todd from near the house to his final location.
Okay. And you did not collect any data from any individuals about whether there was gasoline in the boat, correct?
Objection has been answered.
He said he mentioned Linda Stermer. I'm just asking him, anybody else?
Ask about the boys again. I can't remember. I think you asked about the boys as well.
He did.
Okay. You can ask that again because I can't recall his answer.
Sir, You did not collect any data regarding the possibility of gasoline in the boat, correct?
Objection has been answered, Your Honor.
I asked about various
Sounds
sources.
like a
I'm
big
wrapping it up right
winding up
now.
question,
I'm
Mr.
wrapping
Miller,
it
so
up.
assuming it's a wind-up question, I'll allow it.
Thank you. True?
I did not.
Which means you can't analyze it, correct?
Your
You
Honor, object.
can't.
Has been answered.
This is, it's really cumulative at this point, Mr. Mueller, so either move on or sit down.
If you didn't collect the evidence, you violated the scientific method with respect to that hypothesis, didn't you?
I've collected data
Straight
from statements
question.
of people about the boat,
Before January 12th.
not before January 12th.
Okay, it's not in your report,
This is not my report.
and it's never been in part of testimony, have it?
I don't recall if it's part of testimony.
And you didn't tell us about it this morning, did you?
No.
Give me 1 second to wrap up.
Why can't he just ask? Did you ask anybody if there was gasoline in the boat? Instead of saying, well, you violated the scientific method, why can't he just ask a straight question? That's what makes it argumentative. If you want to do that in your closing argument, that's fine. Ask a straight question when they're on the stand.
So Leroy, let me just kind of wrap up and summarize what we talked about. You didn't take photographs of your excavation, right?
Objection, Your Honor. These have all been asked
I'm
and
just
answered. You don't
wrapping
have to
it up.
Asked and answered.
Do you believe, based on everything you did, that you properly documented your investigation?
Yes.
Do you believe that everything you did, you complied with all the mandates of the scientific method?
Yes.
And NFPA 921, everything they say to do and to do. No more questions, Your Honor. Give me a second for my housekeeping.
And then counsel, you moved to admit just the one, the rest were demonstrative, correct?
I move to
I
admit
think the scientific method one,
that was D
that was D.
and A and B, his photographs.
Okay, so we got the photograph. We thought we heard an L.
L was previously admitted.
Oh, okay.
Let me-
Is that your understanding, Mr. Blair? So
Yeah,
the-
that sounds about right.
just
Is what
the-
we've gone through, Your Honor.
The scientific method one will admit, the others are demonstrative, other than the photos that were already admitted. Okay. Okay, thank you. So we'll take our lunch break, jury, and I'll have you come back at 1:15 to the jury room. Please, no media, no discussions with anyone.
Man, that, he drives me nuts. He asks the same questions over and over and over. He just thinks of different ways to ask the same question. And then he says, no, I haven't asked that question, Your Honor. Yeah, you did. You just asked it 3 times in a row.
Jury's left, any matters to address in our break, counsel? Any
Nothing
matters
yet,
to
Your Honor. No,
address?
thank you.
Anything? Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. I will see you guys back at 1:15. I'm going to grab something to eat real quick and then we will be back. Let me see if I can do a portal. I can, oh, that's right. I can't do it from the, can't do it from the iPad. I tried to do it from the iPad yesterday. See if I can do it from the computer without crashing StreamYard. StreamYard has been extremely touchy today. And I don't know why. Oh, I can't make a portal. If I make a portal, it's going to screw up StreamYard. It's not even going to put the comment up there. Now I can't even see the comment anymore. Just because said he's a mix of Sarah Boone and Ashley Benefield's lawyer. Oh, there it is. Kinda. So I cleaned my cookies last night. I restarted the computer. I did all the maintenance last night before I went to bed. StreamYard is still being picky today. I don't know why. And my speed is now 2 gigs up and 2 gigs down. So I don't know why it's being the way it is today. Hey, but at least it's letting me keep my camera on. Okay, so I'll see you guys in half an hour. 1:15. Enjoy your lunch. Bye. Thanks for coming out, guys.